The Gathering Audiobook by Gabriel Garcia. Chapter 2. Cannae, 216 BC, the Second Punic War. 2 years earlier. In the southern regions of the Roman countryside, Decimus Aquila sat on the terrace of his villa, marveling at the stunning view before him. His home, nestled near the coast, allowed him to hear the soothing sounds of waves crashing against the shore. In his fields, golden grain and lush vineyards thrived, basking in the sun's warm rays that highlighted his marble house. Out of the corner of his eye he spotted his two sons, Romulus and Justinian, playing happily among the trees. Romulus had inherited his mother's flowing hair and fair skin, while Justinian resembled his father more closely. A smile tugged at Decimus's lips as he wished these perfect moments could last forever. "Enjoying the view?" a gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. He looked up to his wife, Flavia, approaching. Her golden hair and vibrant green eyes reminded him of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. She knelt beside him and kissed his forehead softly. "I see the harvest went well today," she remarked, noticing the grains piled high on their farm. "Nature has smiled upon us, my love. With this grain I can trade it in Rome, and we can finally move to our new home up north." Just then the sound of hoofs echoed as horses approached the villa. Decimus rose from his chair, ready to investigate. Flavia handed him his sword and called the children inside for safety. The horses halted in front of the villa, and mounted on them were Roman soldiers. Decimus felt a sense of familiarity wash over him. He recognized these men. "Alexios and Marcus Invictus. What brings you here?" The two brothers dismounted and embraced their former commander. Decimus, once a skilled cavalryman, had retired shortly after marrying Flavia, and he wondered why his old subordinates were visiting him in full military gear. Alexios spoke first. "I wish our news were better. The Senate has ordered the formation of a new army. Hannibal's forces have crossed the Alps." Decimus felt a wave of disbelief. No army had ever successfully navigated those treacherous mountains. "That can't be true," he replied. It was then that Marcus chimed in. "It gets worse. Hannibal's army is marching toward Rome from the north, and grows with every tribe he conquers. Our sources estimate his forces are now 50,000 strong." Decimus's complexion paled. The last time he recalled hearing of such a massive force was during the Persian invasion of Greece. "How does this concern me?" he asked, confusion clouding his thoughts. "The Senate has decreed that all officers must report for training, including retired ones." "What? You expect me to re-enlist?" Decimus exclaimed. Flavia, hearing this, could hardly contain her fury. She marched right up to Alexios and slapped him across the face. "How dare you? How dare you both come here with this news, forcing him to return and fight in your wars? Has he not done enough already?" Her face flushed with anger, her voice rising. "Flavia, it's not just about us," Marcus tried to reason with her. "We're all being called back. There are more recruits than officers, and Decimus was the only one who could lead these men. We leave tonight." Flavia turned away, heartbroken, and Decimus sighed as he looked at his friends. "Is the situation truly that dire?" Alexios ran a hand through his hair, his expression grave. "Decimus, it's far worse. Hannibal has defeated two consul commanders. His tactics are unmatched, and he intends to sack Rome and lay waste to everything. The Senate needs seasoned officers to train these recruits." After a thoughtful pause, Alexios continued, "If we don't stop him, we risk losing our homes and our country." Weighing his friend's words, Decimus felt the weight of the decision before him. After a long silence, he finally said, "All right. Where do we meet?" "We'll gather just outside the village and then make our way to the military camp miles away," replied Alexios. Decimus considered this for a moment. "Very well. I'll meet you there, he confirmed. The two brothers mounted their horses once again and rode off into the village. Later that day, Decimus cherished every moment with his family, playing, telling stories from his past, and making memories. After his sons were tucked into bed, he ventured to the barn to gather his gear. As he stepped inside, he saw Flavia holding a torch, his expression somber. I won't lie to you, Decimus said softly. Then don't, Flavia replied, placing the torch aside and handing him his military uniform and equipment. Cradling the items in his arms, Decimus set them down and drew his wife in for a tender kiss. Their lips met, and the old passion between them ignited once more. I love you. I promise. I will return, he vowed. Don't make promises you can't keep, Flavia responded, her voice thick with emotion. Gathering his gear, Decimus mounted one of the horses in the stable and rode off into the night. It would be the last time he saw them. The very last time. Present day. In 3 years, Rome suffered devastating losses, finding itself beyond the reach of grief. The battles of Trebia and Trasmene marked some of the Republic's most costly defeats. Fear crept into the Senate, prompting them to rally an unprecedented force of 75,000 soldiers, the largest army Rome had ever assembled. Among the troops was Decimus Aquila, a seasoned Roman commander in charge of the allied cavalry. Originally from southern Italy, Decimus had been engaged in this war since its onset. He had witnessed the slaughter of men he once trained, and the toll of casualties only continued to rise. Despite their rigorous training and overwhelming numbers, the situation had not improved over 3 long years. Not quite old yet, no longer young. Decimus felt the weight of weariness settling in after each encounter with Hannibal. The Carthaginian general seemed perpetually one step ahead of the Romans. Even amid despair, with morale plummeting and spirits dwindling, Decimus endeavored to instill a sense of hope in his men, though perhaps it was a fool's hope. Stationed a mere 30 miles from Hannibal's camp near Cannae, Decimus sat alone in his tent with a flickering candle beside him. Before him lay a blank papyrus scroll, alongside a jar of ink and a pen. He hesitated to lift the stylus as a rush of emotions filled his mind. A tight knot gripped his throat, and tears began to well in his eyes. His heart racing in his chest, he realized that he needed to write, but he questioned whether he had the strength to do so. Taking several deep breaths, he steadied his heartbeat. Best to get it over with, he whispered to himself. With a firm resolve, he dipped the pen into the ink and began to write. As he poured his emotions onto the page, he crafted a heartfelt letter to his wife back home. My beloved Flavia, as I write this, my heart aches with the longing to see you and our precious boys one last time. Please understand that my decision to re-enlist weighs heavily on me. As a devoted soldier and a passionate patriot of Rome, I feel a deep responsibility to protect our home and our loved ones from the threat that looms over us. The devastation I have witnessed at Trasmene and Trebia still haunts me, and I cannot stand idly by while such evil threatens our way of life. I must admit that morale in our camp is low, but a few of us officers are doing our best to inspire hope among the men, reminding them of the love we cherish and the lives we fight to preserve. If this turns out to be my last letter, please know that my love for you has always been boundless. I would lay down my life for our home, our land, and the beautiful family we have created together. With all my love, your devoted husband, Decimus. Decimus set down his ink quill, allowing the letter to dry before sealing it. He rubbed his tired eyes, filled with a weariness that seemed to weigh him down. How much longer can we endure? He pondered. the aging Roman spirits dampened by the harsh realities he encountered over the past 3 years. His once bright brown eyes had dulled, stripped of their former joy. Standing up from his chair, he stretched his back and decided to take a night stroll. Exiting his tent, he passed by fellow soldiers engaged in various pastimes. Some were busy with betting games, others recited poetry, while many rested. His walk led him to a small hill that marked the camp's edge. Upon reaching the summit, Decimus turned to gaze at the countless campfires dotting the valley below, flickering like stars against the dark landscape. "I wonder how many of them we'll see tomorrow," he mused. He was acutely aware that this war would demand a heavy toll in lives, yet he had never anticipated such staggering losses in such a short span. The men even placed bets on who among them would survive the longest, a grim game with no winners at the end. Feeling the gentle autumn breeze, Decimus savored the tranquil moment, contemplating whether tonight might be his last. With a heavy sigh, he looked up at the night sky, where countless stars seemed to blanket the world. Although not religious, he often imagined the stars as the spirits of fallen soldiers, watching over the living and offering comfort. Realizing he would need his strength for the day ahead, Decimus descended the hill and returned to his tent. Inside, he kicked off his worn sandals to let his feet breathe. Just before extinguishing the candle, he noticed his helmet, armor, and sword hanging nearby. Once, when he first joined the army, his equipment gleamed like new. Now, after 3 years of relentless war, it bore the marks of battle. The helmet caked in dirt, the armor popped with dents from arrows and spears, and the sword, once a symbol of power, now a dull piece of metal encased in a wooden scabbard. As the old soldier lay down on the floor, he closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep, weary from the weight of it all. The next morning, Decimus was awakened with a start. A subordinate stood over him, fully clad in battle armor. "Sorry for the abrupt wake-up call, sir, but the army is moving out soon, and we need you at the front," the soldier informed him. Decimus blinked a few times, stifled a yawn, and replied, "All right, give me a few minutes. Fetch me my horse once you're outside." The soldier saluted and left, allowing Decimus to prepare. He splashed water on his face to shake off the remnants of sleep, then dressed in his armor. After tightly securing his sword belt around his waist and putting on his helmet, he grabbed the letter he had written the night before, tucking it in one of his pouches before stepping outside. Just before joining his men, he remembered something important and went back to his desk to retrieve it. His golden eagle necklace, a symbol of Rome. Unlike most Romans, Decimus had never been particularly religious and rarely made sacrifices to the gods, but after rejoining the army, he had accepted that perhaps everybody needed a guardian watching over them. He put the necklace around his neck, clasped it, and recited a brief prayer for himself and his men. Finishing, he exited the tent to find his horse saddled and waiting. The same soldier from earlier held the reins while the rest of the army formed up. As Decimus took the reins and mounted his horse, he gave the command, and his unit began the 30-mile march to Cannae to face Hannibal once and for all. Glancing back, he observed the weary faces of the men behind him, brothers lost to the war, including Marcus and Alexios. Shoving those thoughts aside, the unit continued into the valley. As they marched, Decimus sensed the flanks cavalry units were becoming tightly packed. This did not bode well for the Romans. "Feels like we're walking into a trap. We're all cramped together, unable to maneuver. If Hannibal strikes now, it could be a massacre." He kept this troubling thought to himself, unwilling to share his fears. As they advanced, news came that infantry had already clashed with Hannibal's forces. Though he couldn't see the battle, the sounds of conflict filtered through the air. The clamor of steel clashing and dying men echoed in the valley, growing louder by the moment. Suddenly, Decimus's worst fears materialized. As a thunderous gallop approached, Hannibal's Gallic and Spanish cavalry charged toward them at full speed. Quickly, Decimus ordered his men to draw their swords and prepare for a countercharge. In an instant both units raced towards one another. Decimus swung his sword, cleaving through enemies with ruthless efficiency. One soldier's head fell away, while another met a quick end at his blade's edge. Blood sprang across the battlefield. It was chaos. Fear had gripped the hearts of the Roman soldiers, and in his years of service, Decimus knew this would not end well. Lost in his whirlwind of thoughts, Decimus never saw the Gallic soldier approach until it was too late. With a sudden, forceful yank, he was yanked from his horse, crashing hard onto the ground. His breath knocked from his lungs. In a heartbeat, he snapped back to the present, instinct kicking in as he swiftly dodged a savage slash from the wild Gallic warrior. Heart racing, Decimus gasped, struggling to regain his footing. Summoning every ounce of adrenaline, he lunged forward and tackled the barbarian, bringing them both crashing to the earth. In the fray, he desperately fought to draw his dagger from its sheath, but the fierce warrior was quicker. With a brutal kick, the Gallic soldier sent Decimus sprawling, grasping the dagger before Decimus could even mount a defense. In a flash, the barbarian surged forward, the sharp blade glinting menacingly in the light. Decimus barely had time to react as the tip of the dagger plunged into his shoulder, searing pain radiating throughout his body. Argh! Decimus roared in agony, the pain searing through his shoulder as he kicked the Gaul away. With a swift motion, he yanked the knife from his flesh. Thankfully, the blade had narrowly missed any vital organs, but the injury rendered his arm nearly useless and kindled a raging fury within him. Fueled by adrenaline, he snatched a heavy rock from the ground and swung it with all his might. The impact sent the Gaul crashing to the earth. But Decimus, he wasn't finished. With a primal growl, he leapt on top of the fallen, unleashing a storm of blows to the Gaul's skull. It was a brutal display of raw power and vengeance, and Decimus reveled in his relentless assault. "Begone!" he shouted at the lifeless figure before him. His eyes were wide with fear, and his face was smeared with blood. All around him chaos reigned as violence consumed everyone in its path. Taking a few deep breaths, he hurled the rock away and returned the dagger to its sheath. He longed to draw his sword, but understood that the battle was already lost. For years he had fought for duty and Rome, but now a primal instinct surged within him: survival. He had to escape this slaughter and return to his family. As he sprinted across the battlefield, he witnessed men being yanked from their horses and mercilessly slain, while others fell to the onslaught of enemy cavalry. Breathing heavily, the pain in his shoulder intensified. While navigating through the valley in search of a horse, he was confronted by a Spanish cavalryman charging towards him. Heart racing, he scanned the area for any weapon. Spotting a pilum, a throwing spear, he dashed for it, launching it at the approaching enemy. The spear found its mark, driving through the cavalryman's breastplate and sending him crashing to the ground. Ignoring the sharp pain, he rushed to the fallen horse and galloped away. In the chaos, he caught sight of Hannibal's cavalry launching an attack on the Roman flank. His grim prediction had come true. He barely managed to escape the valley, only to witness the Carthaginians slowly cornering the Romans, driving them into a lethal trap with no way out. From his vantage point, Decimus heard the heart-wrenching screams of Roman soldiers and the cries of fallen horses. So many young and old men were perishing, and he felt utterly helpless to save them. His heart burned with a mixture of hatred, anger, and sorrow. Hot tears welled in his eyes, but despite his convictions, he knew he was powerless. Taking one last look at the horrific scene, he fled. As he rode away, the pain in his shoulder flared up again, transforming into something more intense. Suddenly, blue flames began to engulf Decimus and his horse. He tried to extinguish the fire, but had little effect as the blue flames spread, causing excruciating pain. Was this some divine punishment for his cowardice? Before he could fully process what was happening, a blinding blue light enveloped him, threatening to steal his sight. Then, in an instant, both he and his horse vanished. In a twist of fate, the only thing left untouched by the flames was his letter to his wife and family, lying perfectly on the ground where he once stood.